Hi, this is Sweet Life, and I'm Natasha, back at it with a recap and discussion of Season 2, Episode 10 of Power Book 3, Raising Kanan. If you don't know, now you know. This is the first of two parts because the last 10 minutes of the season finale needs its own episode. RAQ. Unique is a character. He just brings so much to the show. It's like, just this blend of these different characters brings so much to the show. Here it was last season, Unique and RAQ were trying to kill each other. Things have kind of cooled between them, at least for the time being. They meet up at the diner, this neutral spot. RAQ wants to extend an opportunity for Unique to truly come into the fold. She's trying to get Unique over to her side, but as he warns her, the Italians are coming. And my feeling was in the vein of like last episode, Unique told Baselli that he was going to dime out RAQ. And so here it is that he doesn't give any RAQ any information about the Italians beyond just giving her a heads up that, listen, you got a big problem because they're coming for you. My feeling was that he was kind of just going to sit on the sidelines, let the two of them go at it, and then work out something for himself after the smoke clears. Unique is seemingly just like flirtatious with every and any woman. Earlier in the season, he was flirting with Burke. We know Burke is a lesbian. Here now you have RAQ, right? And he's flirting with her, asking RAQ if like she's ever been attracted to him, things like that. She explains that it wasn't that long ago the two of them were trying to kill each other. But at the same time, I thought it telling, right? Because she seems to be amused by it, right? Her reaction to it is different from Burke's in that she actually smiles, right? And finds it amusing. She doesn't sound like she's interested in Unique at all, at least not in that way. But you can see like they kind of banter back and forth. And when he gets up to walk away, she smiles to herself, which I thought was a nice little touch. It's like there's this thing within the show of balance. So previously between RAQ and Unique, such a meeting could have been tense and heavy with the looming threat of violence, but here it's very civilized. It's actually fun, flirty, flirtatious. And this is like this thing of balance that you see throughout the show where it's like you'll have these very tense scenes. So just before this scene, you had the scene with Marvin and Sam. And then you get to this scene where they're discussing pretty serious business, but it's done in such a way that it kind of lightens the mood. So it's not just serious, serious, serious all the time. There's balance to it. We see Baselli make a trip to Queens and he meets with, I think the guy's name is Manchetti or something like that, right? So this is the guy that they alluded to last episode where apparently he's the boss out here in Queens. And so with things moving towards war between RAQ and Baselli, somebody has to kind of get clearance from this guy because Baselli's going to be moving into his territory. He goes there really just to give him a heads up. They have some banter back and forth and basically he finds out that RAQ went to speak to Manchetti first. And so this is the thing with the Italians where they do business with RAQ and other black folks and stuff like that, but it's this thing of constrained civility. It's not like any genuine respect, right? They're actually quite racist towards them. RAQ has gone to meet Manchetti and, lets him know what the deal is. And so his perspective is that pretty much as Italians, they don't deal with blacks. He gives Baselli the go-ahead that, to go ahead, handle the situation, take care of RAQ, get her out of there quickly. And so basically, he's put the green light on RAQ and the rest of the Thomas organization. On the one hand, that's indicative that there's going to be a problem on the horizon, that Baselli and his people are now going to come at her full force. But part of it is also, if you think of it like boxing, right, where for every shot that Baselli has thrown, RAQ has thrown a counter. They wanted Marvin, they came at him, they got Renee instead, which was unfortunate. Lou hit back at Jimmy, so in that regard, they were somewhat even. Baselli went to Queens to talk to Manchetti to get clearance, but RAQ had already beat him through it. So it's like they're trading blows, and the Italians, Baselli, they're the bigger fighter. But it's sort of like thus far, RAQ has had an answer for everything he's throwing, and in some instances, we see that she's actually a step ahead. I don't think she's under any illusions that Manchetti is on her side, but basically just gave him like a heads up so as to hopefully avoid problems with him. Like, listen, this is what's about to happen. And so with that, it's looking like it's going to be hectic for a minute. But at the same time, given how things have gone so far, I'm not ready to count RAQ and the crew out. I think they're going to possibly sustain some heavy damage, and it's possible a couple people might get killed in the process. But I'm curious to see how things shake out, because it doesn't seem like as unfair and uneven a fight as it might have first appeared. So later on, RAQ is meeting up with the brothers at her place. She's packing, preparing to move. She explains to them that she'd gone and spoken to Manchetti. She'd also spoken with Unique, and pretty much got assurances from Manchetti that he's not going to get involved, as well as from Unique as well. Besides this, it's like open season on RAQ and the crew, right? What RAQ takes from this is that there'll be no reinforcements for Baselli and his people. She describes it as, I think her concern was more so the New York faction getting involved because they're heavy. But with this crew out in Jersey, part of it might be underestimating them, but I think she recognizes the size and power, right? And has hopefully taken that into account. But she sees it as that their chances in pushing back against the Italians from Jersey are greater because they're not like the main event, right? They don't have to worry about the major push of the New York faction. It's going to be hectic, but she sees a way through. Her more major concern was the possibility of the New York faction getting involved. So pretty much she tries to reassure the brothers that they're going to take a stand here. They're going to try to hold their own. To add to that, given her further confidence, is that they don't really have to worry about Unique helping the Italians. So that's one potential ally for Baselli that they don't have to worry about. So she's gotten assurances from the New York boss that he's not getting involved either. So pretty much all of these people that could have added complications to the situation are choosing to sit this stuff out. They're going to lay back, let Baselli and his crew, RAQ and her crew go at it. They're probably going to look to take advantage of the situation afterwards. Like, let these two fight it out, kill each other, create problems for each other and whatnot. And then they're going to end up, even whoever ends up emerging victorious, they're going to be in a somewhat weakened state because they're going to take some losses along the way. And that then becomes an opportunity for you to move in and kind of grab up some things for yourself with less resistance. I do think that RAQ is kind of underestimating, sort of like along the lines with the first season where you might win the battle, but the repercussions and things like that for you after, you're going to have to continue dealing with them even after the dust settles, right? When the dust settles, that's when your new problems are going to become clearer. So we see RAQ and the brothers, they come out of the house, RAQ looks around as she's leaving the house because she's uneasy. She knows that danger could be upon her at any moment. So she's not like walking out of the house carefree like she usually is. And so it adds some tension because the camera is actually across the street. And so at first when they came out, I thought it was that someone was watching. Right? It adds tension because it's like now your head as someone in the audience is on a swivel because you're watching at any moment something could pop off. So she asked the security guys who were sitting out in front of the house in the car if they're hungry. Lou is still uneasy. RAQ is talking with the guys. She'd spoken to him previously, and I think it was the last episode asking him are you in or out? Because there's no part-time work here. And it's pretty much like, bro, make up your mind, right? He doesn't say anything outwardly during their meeting, but you can sense his apprehension and RAQ picks up on it. Marvin actually asks Lou, is everything okay? Because Lou is mumbling under his breath and whatnot. Lou has his stuff going on, right? Like added pressure in addition to this now looming war with the Italians. And here it is, like RAQ turns to Marvin and she's like, your little brother is acting up again, kind of questioning whether or not he's down, which Marvin tries to reassure her by pointing to Lou going at the Italians for taking a shot at Marvin. And it's at this point, Marvin tells her that Kanan came by earlier in the day at Baisley and stole several G-Packs. This is now another problem that RAQ's going to have to deal with. Kanan has stolen from her before. And Marvin mentions that, mentions to Kanan as they're speaking that drugs went missing before, as did some cash. And it sounds like he assumed that it was Kanan, but in this moment, in seeing Kanan take it here, he knows that it was Kanan. I do wonder if Marvin told RAQ about Lou taking that money, right? Because we haven't heard any mention of it. But it's this thing, it's a tough game, man. You have your son stealing from you. You have your brother stealing from you. Like, you've done wrong to them. And it's just this constant riffing and raffing, right? You have family drama, yes, but it's further intensified and made dangerous because of this business that they're involved with. So for RAQ, the whole point of getting Cartier out of the way was pretty much to open up a pathway into DC with his workers. And so with that, she meets with them asking about how big a package they need, right? But actually they've gone around RAQ to Joaquin, made direct contact with him, worked out their own deal. So now pretty much the point of getting rid of Cartier was so Tremont, as Tremont pointed out last episode, is that Cartier was a problem, right? He was cold-blooded, but RAQ, he felt, would be an even bigger problem. Effectively, they had RAQ do all of their dirty work, clearing all of their problems off the board, but then turned around and cut her out of the business. And so now that's like another set of problems there, right? Because she removed Cartier and they double-crossed her. In part, this came about as well because, you know, the Italians, right? Like they've gotten wind of that and they don't want to get wrapped up in that drama, right? Tremont and his guy, they want direct access line to the supplier rather than having to deal with the middleman. And so they've given her the business, right? And as she states. And with that, it can be expected that she's going to hit back at them. In addition to that, it shows that like Joaquin isn't loyal either. Neither is Juliana, right? You can't really trust them. You can't really trust anybody in this business because she's made Joaquin a lot of money, but Tremont and his guy are going to make him money too. So with that, why would Joaquin turn them down? One person's dollar is as good as the other, right? And so I've always gotten the sense that Joaquin does business with RAQ, but he kind of questions her along the way, right? Like there's no genuine love or respect there. This is now twice. The irony of it is that these are people that RAQ has helped get rid of problems. They've turned around and stabbed her in the back, actually joining forces. Juliana, who was being abused by Gabriel, reached out to RAQ for help. RAQ helped her get him out the way, and she turns around and stabs RAQ in the back. So she was upset about the situation with Unique because he grabbed her up and whatnot. It seems like for all intents and purposes, he didn't physically harm her in any way. Now, granted, he was messing around with her psychologically. So I understand her being upset in that regard. But as RAQ explained to her, like, listen, I'm going to handle that situation. You just have to be patient for the moment and bide your time. Just like last season with Gabriel, you know, it's like she came through for you there. I would think based on that, you would sit back and hang tight and be cool. She didn't say she wasn't going to do anything about it. She didn't brush it off. She just said you have to give it some time. And now here you have it where she's also helped out Tremont by helping him get rid of Cartier when just like last episode or like 2 episodes, Cartier was like bullying him, like beating him up. So you have in particular these 2 people joining forces and cutting her out. I'm not really getting this transformation with Juliana. I could see, you know, Tremont joining forces with the cousin, with Joaquin. But the character of Juliana, I'm not really getting because suddenly she's now Griselda Blanco. This is the second time we've seen her sitting right next to Joaquin. You know, she looks like, you know, like a drug babe or something. Look at how she is now versus when she was in the store. You know, I'm not really getting that transformation with the character, you know, because she was like scared and mousy last season when she was in the store with Gabriel walking around. You know, her cousin was around. He's a powerful drug dealer then. I don't really understand why she wasn't capable of this then, but she is now. You know, Joaquin seems to kind of be following her lead. If that was the case, why didn't she just get him to get rid of Gabriel last season? Why was she so meek and mellow last season with Gabriel? And now here it is that she's willing to make an enemy of RAQ, something that Joaquin actually recognizes the danger of RAQ. If she's so upset and Joaquin is a powerful guy, why didn't they hit back at Unique? RAQ's made you a lot of money. She's enabled you to get rid of Gabriel. It's like, I don't know, man. But I do appreciate that Marvin was there and was able to be the voice of reason because I think RAQ's anger is understandable, but the way that she rushed in to speak to Joaquin, number one, that could have gone a whole lot different as a scene. And then as well, without him being there, like Marvin says, they should probably leave before something gets said or done that can't be taken back. And so with this, we see that RAQ's empire is exploding. It's falling apart. She has no connect. She's back to where she was last season and is actually even worse off. So it's like, it's pretty much open season on RAQ. She's got the Italians coming at her. She's lost her connect. Who is she supposed to get drugs from to supply this huge empire that she's now created? You know, Joaquin and them, they might take a hit at her just to get her out of the way, to not have to worry about her coming back at them. I don't even know how you fight your way back from this. It'd be one thing if you were dealing with any one of these problems, right? Any one of these things on their own can be overcome. The problem is that you have all of these problems coming at you at one time. And so with that, for the first time in this series, we actually see RAQ cry. So she's in this new house, just her by herself. Her world is falling apart. And it's telling that the scene actually opens with her standing in this big window by herself. There's like a vase with some flowers. Often like real estate agents, when you buy a new house, they'll send you some kind of like welcome gift or whatever. She's standing there, and in the house, it's like seemingly aside from a lamp, the house is empty. It's not a home. And trying to obtain this house, she's lost everything. Family is on the brink. And it's like even Kanan, right? The most important person in her life, he's gone. And so is her business as well. And so it's like in that moment, she starts crying. And so Lou pops up. He's just left the bank, and she actually begs off from having this conversation with him. Like, I can't do this with you tonight. Everything is falling apart, and she doesn't want to talk to him about this. For a minute, I felt like one of them was going to pull for something and somebody was going to get hurt. He talks about the work that he's put in, having to kill Kanan's friend, having to, shooting at the Italians the night before. But, that she questions him and the work that he puts in. So he talks about this stuff like these are things that are weighing on him. Honestly, they're things that are weighing on all of them. None of them are happy. She reveals to Lou that in killing Scrappy, she made a mistake. He was solid. His mom was the snitch, and obviously she feels some way about it. And it's like, Lou, which I'm not dismissing his complaints about how the things that they've done weigh on him. But as she explains, it weighs on her too. These are not things that she wants to do. This is not the person that she wants to be. Like, she's lost a lot. But with seemingly few other options, she does what has to be done. And, she does it because it's how they eat. Marvin and Lou wanted no parts of killing Scrappy, right? Like it's stated that he killed Scrappy, but he didn't pull the trigger. He might have been there. He might have, him and Marvin might have driven Scrappy to his death, but RAQ was the one to pull the trigger. And having done that, as she states, that's something she's going to have to live with. She made a mistake. She took Scrappy. He was a loyal soldier, a friend, almost family. And because of his mother's actions, she killed him. That's something that RAQ's going to have to live with. That's going to weigh on her conscience. And so it's like throughout the series, RAQ is shown as being cold-blooded. We see a lot of humanity from Lou because you see how this stuff weighs on him. He talks about how it affects him. And now we're seeing that with Marvin too, how all of this is weighing on him, right? We see that in his handling of Sam. You hear from Lou and Marvin about how the things that they do weigh on them, how they want to change their lives, they want to get out of it. But up until this point, you never really hear that from RAQ, at least not that openly and honestly. You get some inklings of it, you pick up on some little things that she says, but quite often she keeps a lot of these things to herself. All of them are having to do things that weigh on them, that they don't really want to have to do, but they feel they have to given the nature of their business. And so it's like they get financial things from this business that they're in, but it takes so much from them at the same time. The things that they've done, they're going to have to live with. It's kind of like a pressure cooker. It reaches a certain point where you can't take it anymore. And so finally you see RAQ break down. Like usually she's a cool customer. You don't really see her get emotionally angry. She remains pretty calm. But here you see it that like she lets go on Lou. And basically it's like she's tired of him complaining. This thing of him being in and out of the business, she's tired of hearing it. Like he's hurt. Not to invalidate his feelings, but pretty much they're like in the same position. As she explains to him, he's not going anywhere. He can't go anywhere because everything he has is hers because she's given it to him. It's like pretty much, I've cleared a path. I've made a way for you. I've provided for you and the rest of the family, so you're not going anywhere. You are mine. I own you. And it's like going back to the narration at the start of the episode, right? Where it's stated that in this life, it's like, you sell your soul to the devil, right? But rather, the devil doesn't buy souls. He sells you things. And so in this sense, it's like they've bought into this business, into this lifestyle, the things that it gives them, but it takes so much from you in the process. It's like it takes your soul in the process and you're not getting that back. So you see RAQ back out the house in Queens and her stuff is mostly packed up, right? And she's sitting at the table with the last thing that remains unpacked, this baby picture of Kanan. It's telling that in these last moments in the house, that's the picture she picks up. This picture of Kanan as a baby. Kanan. It's unclear how much time has passed, but it's at least a few days later since Famous has killed Freddie, right? So he's got a body in himself. He's created a potential source of problems for himself, and he didn't even solve his money problems. He's still broke. I'm pretty sure Kanan doesn't know about what happened with Freddie, right? But here it is that they're back down to the wire again. And so with Kanan staying with Famous, he's not hustling with the family anymore. Famous states that he's going to have to chip in some money. With him not being at home, with RAQ giving him money or, whatever money he had saved up from hustling with the family, it's like running out because he's having to spend out of it and he's not adding to it. He comes up with the idea of them going back out into the corner to sell the drugs. And so the question is, where are you going to get drugs, right? And this is to tell you Kanan's mentality, the sense of entitlement. His first thing is, he doesn't want anything to do with his mom. Fine, I get it. But at the first sign of trouble or when you need money, that's still the person that you basically turn to. You might not be going to her to ask for it, but essentially you're expecting to just get drugs from her because as he states, it's his. It's been his, right? It's this sense of entitlement that, like RAQ owes him something. What the logic is and how you get there, I don't understand. But that's telling, right? There's been this little creeping thing of Kanan being entitled, where it's like this going back and forth about whether or not you want to be in the business and whatnot. Him feeling like because of who his family is, he should be able to do what they do. It's like you don't want to deal with your mom, but at the same time, you're more than willing to benefit from this illegal business. Basically, Kanan doesn't know what he wants. He's operating according to what seems to be based on him being upset with his mom. But here it is, little boy that he is, you basically go running back to your mother when you're in trouble. Once again, you have a family member stealing or taking things for their own personal benefit, right? And Marvin bearing witness to it. The first time was Lou with the money, now it's Kanan. And this time he's stealing, it's not just one package, but several. Marvin sees that Kanan's stealing, and it's like just this entitlement, in that he feels he doesn't have to ask RAQ for it. He doesn't have to talk to her about it. Now, granted, RAQ has contributed to a lot of this because I feel like a long time ago, she should have checked Kanan. Like last season, she tried, but she stopped short. I think part of it might be given what she's doing. She doesn't feel like she has the moral authority to really check him because she's doing wrong. She's done wrong. Burke is asking around, trying to locate Sam, right? And she gets a tip from some crackheads. It's kind of like bred some bad feelings between him and the other addicts because he showed up on the scene with a bunch of money and wasn't willing to share. This leads to Burke finding his body as well as that of the other man that Marvin killed. Seemingly, there's like quite a bit of police activity in the neighborhood once again. As we all know, Howard doesn't do his job, but Burke is on it, and the other guy who I can't remember, he's on it too. We see that he's now poking around in Freddie's murder, right? He's back at Freddie's building, goes to speak with the older man, the neighbor who lives across the hall from Freddie. And so Burke has a proper read on what's going on, but Howard shows up and tries to redirect her, right? Like downplaying her findings. Under different circumstances, on a different show, I think we as the audience would be rooting for Burke. But I think part of why you don't is that the way she goes about it, the way she handles herself is like really off-putting. I think the reason that Burke is still surviving at this point is largely because she's a police officer. And thus far, there's no easy way to physically get rid of her without creating further problems for yourself. And so we see here that Kanan and Famous are out on the street hustling. Famous astutely points out that, RAQ didn't want anyone out in the corners, right? She moved all of her business and has everybody else move off of the corners. But here you have it, like Kanan is kind of poking at her. I feel like he's doing things to provoke her. Like he's obviously looking for attention from her. Kanan has had a run-in with Burke, right? She questions him and whatnot, and not getting the information that she wants from him, she tries to arrest him. So he pushes her over and takes off running, and with that goes to Howard. Howard knows that things are closing in. Burke has kind of figured things out, right? So Burke meets up with her girlfriend to let her know, like, listen, should anything happen to me, they might try to paint the story one way, but know that this is what's going on. Howard, meanwhile, tells Kanan that the two of them need to sit down and come up with some kind of a story with RAQ so that when, the police step in and start asking questions, they're all on the same page, because it's likely going to happen at some point. Marvin. As expected, the show starts off with a bang, pretty much picking up where the previous episode left off, where Marvin was trying to do a good thing by putting Sam on a bus to get him out of town to safety, solving the problems here in Queens without having to kill him. But Sam is so wrapped up in drugs that he's not thinking straight. Marvin delivered him to safety. He ignored everything that might have been said because the call of drugs, the pull of drugs was too strong. So the episode starts off with Marvin walking into what looks like a crack house and expressing his disappointment in Sam. Here it is that Sam has pretty much forced his hand, and this as Marvin is trying to turn over a new leaf, which I think just indicates to us that it's like any of the three Thomas siblings, right? If you have a desire to change your life or you want something different than this, you can't continue operating within this life and expecting that, tomorrow, or just let me get this done or that done, and then I'm going to leave. Once you make up your mind that this is no longer what you want, you just have to leave at that point. Waiting for the right moment isn't the right thing, because the right moment is never going to come. So we know Sam because throughout the season, even going back to the first season, he's popped up every now and then. As Sam states, looking at him, right, you wouldn't know what to make of him, right? You look at him, you just see that this guy's an addict. But as he explains to Marvin, he was a CPA in the past. This is someone that, looking at him now, you wouldn't even trust with $1, but he used to handle large amounts of money. He got into drugs and it pretty much destroyed his life. That's just to tell you how strong that hold is. Here you have it. Marvin has a gun on Sam, right? He's ready to kill him. And in the last few moments of his life, he spends the time smoking crack and talking to Marvin about his life. Lou, Marvin, and some other guys are strapped up in some cars. They roll by the place where Baselli and his crew have kind of set up shop in Queens. So some of the guys are standing outside the building. Lou and Marvin roll by, open fire. One of the guys, I think he sees the cars coming, and I think that's like his saving grace. As they roll down the street, they open fire. I think it's like maybe 5 guys outside. It looks like maybe they hit 4 out of the 5 of them. Now, granted, they don't get Baselli himself, and there's other guys inside with him. They come running out afterwards. But Baselli's now down at least a few people. Now, granted, with this like drive-by stuff, it goes back to Jimmy taking the shot at Marvin. You're at a distance, you open fire, but you're not really taking the time to ensure that the people you shot are dead. You have these big guns, you've caught them by surprise. I guess maybe because you don't know how many people are inside. That might be why they didn't get out and like just try to finish the job there. Regardless of whatever, we see here that Marvin has stepped up, right? He has pretty much become the right hand that RAQ wanted him to be last season, because she can't really depend on Lou. The problem is that RAQ can't depend on the two brothers at the same time. Now, the Thomas organization would be a real problem if RAQ was on it and Lou and Marvin were on it at the same time. There's this idea of heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? But yet Marvin is the voice of reason right now. He calms RAQ down, helps to keep her cool. But yet still, just imagine the stress and pressure, right? He's been a stand-up guy this season. He goes home. You can see that like he's stressed out. And there's like this thing with these camera angles throughout the episode. Some of it might be just the feel of the episode, where you get a sense that like someone's watching and it adds to the tension. But then the camera, like originally the camera's in the kitchen or something like that, but the camera angle shifts and you see him sit down on the couch and relax. But then there's a noise. I thought it was a car pulling up outside and like car doors closing. But it turns out that it was noise coming from upstairs. So he grabs a gun, and it's like this thing with them having guns all about the house because they know that like stuff could pop off at any time. He's thinking somebody's in the house. And so it turns out that it's jukebox. So here in the midst of all this drama, of everything seemingly falling apart, there's this bright spot for him, this happy moment of Jukebox deciding to move back in. Marvin expresses to Jukebox that they have to take care of each other. And I thought it was really touching that as he walks out of the room, he gets ready to head down the stairs. And I was hoping that given everything that's going on, he makes plans with her to meet up later, but that he would have given her a hug or something before he left. But he turns around and you can see that like he's crying. He's so happy to have her back home. Lou. So when we first see Lou, he's in the studio. Zisa comes in. I don't really care about her, but he's going through a stack of envelopes, which look like bills. And he opens one from Carver, which is a local bank. It shows a balance. Turns out that there's all this money in this bank account belonging to the business. And so later on, Lou actually goes to the bank to inquire about what's going on, right? Because up to this point, Crown has owed all of these people money. The banker pulls out some paperwork. And as it turns out, Crown did go to speak to RAQ, but we never saw the follow-up conversation, though she said that they would speak further. RAQ actually told Lou about Crown coming to speak to her, which set in motion, to a degree, Lou killing Crown, supposedly unbeknownst to RAQ. But as the banker explains to Lou, RAQ and Crown came to an agreement where should anything happen to Crown, payments would be made to his mother, but that ownership of his share of the company would go to RAQ. So pretty much, RAQ seemingly manipulated Lou because she put the batter in his back to go and get rid of Crown, right? Questioning whether he's down or whatnot and being like her little brother. The whole situation with the Jamaicans, like he got that cleared up by going to Cartier. And then it's like the two of them went and killed Cartier. And so now here it is that she's gotten Crown out of the way. She's gotten Cartier out of the business, has cleared its debt, and she now has another place to clean her money. She set all this stuff in motion and just manipulated Lou pretty much all the way around. It's trifling, it's wrong, but I was impressed. To see Lou flip to the last page and there's RAQ's name and signature. She played the hell out of Lou. I'm impressed. It's absolutely savage, but I was impressed by that plot twist. Now, granted, the signatures looked a little bit similar, but, we'll put that aside. It goes back to RAQ saying that things are going to get worse before they get better. His only real solution at this point is to make a clean break. Unless and until he leaves and completely cuts himself off from the business, it's always going to be a potential problem. And so with that, we have him now preparing to leave Bulletproof Records. Like he wants no parts of it because RAQ's a part of it. Jukebox. So Jukebox goes to see the young boy that she went on the date with. She figured out that them going out on a date, him asking her out, was really a setup by Kenya and the other members of the church. I would guess that Marvin has taught her a thing or two because seemingly at this point, Juke might be a girl, but Juke was handling herself. So Juke gets arrested for beating up the boy, and she's being held in a cell, but is suddenly released. It so happened that when the doors opened, to the precinct, there was a silhouette of a woman running in with some big earrings. I just assumed that there was RAQ coming to bail her out, but as it turns out, the camera moves and you see Burke sitting in a police car. Turns out that Burke was the one that arranged for her to be released. This is now the second time that Burke has come to Jukebox's rescue when she's had some contact with the police. Jukebox had repaid that previous assist by not giving any information to the internal affairs investigator. But Burke uses this as an opportunity to ask some questions about Howard, which I think was the real reason that she arranged for Jukebox to be released, right? To use that as leverage. So Jukebox isn't willing to give any information about RAQ and Kanan's ties to Howard, but instead she does a solid for Burke by not directly, but sort of subtly telling her, listen, you need to be on the watch out, be on the lookout, because your partner, the people you work with and whatnot, they're not down for you like you think they might be. And so with that, Jukebox meets up with Mr. Bingham, Nicole's dad. And it's at this point that she really does Burke a solid by explaining to him that this information he'd gotten from the cops, from Howard really, that it's not accurate. Burke had nothing to do with Nicole being killed. And with that, she goes further by not just absolving Burke, but actually implicating herself. She doesn't snitch to Burke like some of the other characters might, like when dealing with the police. But in her own way, she actually tells on herself rather than telling on anyone else. And thus in that way, she helps Burke out majorly here, at this point unbeknownst to Burke. Check out part 2. Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and check out my Rolling with RAQ playlist. Go ahead and click that thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.